Okay, welcome to this last talk. Sorry for the minor technical delays.
Do I unmute it?
You are no, yeah. Don't mute.
Don't touch it.
Don't touch it.
One day we'll get it all figured out.
Never.
Until then, we'll just have more time for chit chat. One quick announcement before we get started with the talk. We are planning a full symposium on applications and seismic methods for exploration to the microseismic and hard rock seismic. We hope to have a formal announcement beginning of next week with registration. So this will be Friday, November 15th. So we're just trying to find the last couple speakers to flesh everything out. So if you know anyone that wants to talk about seismic applications or anything related to that, get in touch with us and we'll let you talk about it. Otherwise, we'll just jump right into the talk. So this month's speaker will be Ken Witherly. Ken really doesn't need an introduction. Ken's been in mining far longer than I've ever existed. I believe his bio says at least 50 years. So I think he's got lots of good things to say because of that. Career has spanned everything, deposits, runs his own consulting company, and now helps nonprofits and various other groups spread the word about mining geophysics. So on to you, Ken.
Thanks, Russ. Those of you in the room, thank you for coming. Those of you watching, thank you for watching. We trust you not to do anything impolite during the talk, but it's up to you. I guess one of the things that having the time, as Ross indicated, in the business, I've had more opportunity to think about the history, my personal history in the business, as well as what the industry itself has done over quite a long period of time. I mean, we generally consider the era from post-World War II to the present as being the modern era for mining geophysics and for exploration, period. Before that, it was largely the realm of academics. Mines were usually found by people nothing to do, who knew very little about geology, because there was nowhere to learn much about geology. It wasn't built into curriculums and things like that. And then economic geology grew out of that. But it's important to realize that the Geophysical Society and the economic geologists, both with the letters SEG, have been in business almost 100 years, both of them. And it's pretty amazing. And during that time, they've managed to organize one conference in common, which is an interesting thing as well. Even though their mandates, when you look at their websites, are very, very similar in terms of what their goals are. They are in their silo, very well entrenched. And that's one of the things that you hear a lot about, like when we worked with the CMIT project, the difficulties of getting all these universities across Canada and professors and companies to work was very foreign to them. But anyways, one of the things that is part of this is the people involved and the technologies that have been developed. And I've been a member of the ASEG's history committee for about 10 years, and I'm the only non-Australian. So I must be doing something right, because the Australians definitely throw you off the boat if they don't like it. And it got me thinking, well, you go to the KEGS website, and at that time, the KEGS Foundation had one page for past members, and that was Duncan Crone. And it was a very nice article, but it was put up in like 2014, and nothing had happened since. But a lot gone, particularly as the number of people get older. So I suggested to the KEGS and KEGS Foundation people that we make an effort to try and capture some of the history of what the society has done. I gave a short report at the KEGS Christmas event last year, just calling this the second report. Let's see now, what do we have to do? It's not behaving. Change. There we go. Took a while. All right. So purpose, fairly simple, but like a lot of things, just even as we were sitting down before it started, people don't have a lot of time. So you have to try and find people that will give up some of their time. You could say that maybe older people, retired people are better at it, but there's also a limit to how much interest they might continue with after they retire. So you kind of have there's a certain age. You're not going to get many people probably under 35 or 40. And you don't probably get many people that are over 60, 65. It's just sort of that seems to be a period where, just like investments, a lot of people that age will spend a lot of time thinking about investments because they're thinking about their retirement. Is that a message for us? Okay. So document and collect. Start the mission, and I've got a number of people that have indicated interest and are helping in various ways. Bill Scott's probably the most other active member, but the rest of these folks, known to, I'm sure most of you, are all contributing. Sometimes, like with Rob Gordon, his former employer at GEM. Rob's agreed to try and track him down and get his story. Roman did a lengthy interview with Pierre Norgard, who used to run the Geoteric CGG group. Both of them are in Ottawa, so they're able to organize that directly. Louise and Stefan Sander are helping with information about their father. And Alan King is a very challenging one. He's trying to interview the fellow not invented but built the Max Mins, and it's a very difficult individual, and so he's definitely got some challenges. We started off with a slide deck, circulated that in late 22, and that was put together actually by Ed Morrison, Geotech, in about 2005. And it was basically a history of airborne geophysics. Strong emphasis on what Geotech had, but he did have other companies. And when Ed passed away, Geotech's new owner, I think Ed's son, kindly agreed to allow this to be put back into the community. The fact that the community had contributed a lot of slides to it was sort of the point, was kind of missed at some point, but we got the slide deck back, and that's up and available. We've got interviews ongoing with Dave Fountain, Richard Smith's doing that, Tapio Vera I mentioned, Ivan of GEM, working on a obit for Mario Steiner, and looking at kind of the high level on the history story that some of our colleagues are actually warrant to be considered, or companies suitable for induction into the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame, which is the highest award that the Canadian mining industry has for anything, not just geoscience. And there's only like about 120 people been inducted. I think it started in about the early 90s. And they put 4 people in a year. There was a group back in Toronto who worked to get one for Yves Lamontagne, to get him in. Gordon West was very contributed a lot to that, and is often the case with these awards, the first attempt was not successful, but you're certainly often encouraged to get somebody else. It usually is, there's people who are actually still alive that their colleagues who are voting would like to see them awarded while they're still alive, and people that have passed don't have quite as much stroke anymore. Their friends are the ones that represent them. So I don't think they were saying we don't want Yves Lamontagne in, but this year was not the right year for it. So we'll hopefully they're be successful soon. Stan Ward is a guy that I've identified. I knew him for a long time, but really wasn't that aware of his career until the last year and a half. So Progress has been contacted Mel Best, John Hamilton, Pierre Norgard, Duncan McNeil, Al Scott, Sid Visser, Jan Klein, Frank Jagaditz, Laurie Reed. Those 2 guys I've scheduled to have interviews with next month. Capture them when they're still, like Frank, he had a stroke in August. got one limb that's not working so well, but his noodle is still great. So those are the sort of people that you definitely want to catch before anything else goes on. Looking at the companies is interesting. McFar, did a huge amount of work to put Canada on the map in the 50s, building equipment, doing surveys, airborne, ground. Some really, really smart people, engineers and geophysicists work with them. We think of them now as Phoenix, and they're not quite in the same mold as they were back in the day. But in terms of their contribution at the time, it's very, very significant. Just an example of sort of one of the profiles I'm working on with Stan. He was born here in Vancouver in 1923, but his family moved to Toronto before he entered into university. And so he got his degrees at University of Toronto and came out in the early 50s. He already had a job as chief geophysicist for McFar before he even came out of school. And he was doing interpretation. He was building instruments. He's the father of AFMAG, built the first system with McFar. And he's responsible in the Bathurst camp for the discovery of 6 to 7 deposits, including Brunswick 12 and Heath Steel, the very first massive sulfide found with airborne EM that went and became a mine. Heath Steel, 1952, was flown. 53, Stan wrote the report with, So that's actually one of the important things when the Mining Hall of Fame looks at somebody's career and achievements is, did they find stuff? Well, he did find stuff, but other people found stuff too. Maybe it was easier. Maybe the fish were in a barrel. But anyways, just a career summary. There's the bullet points I looked at and built for the nomination. Early years at the Bathurst camp. He then went to Berkeley for 10 years and had a stellar number of students that came out. Norman Keevil was his first student. Frank Morrison was one of his students. And literally between PhDs and masters, dozens. And many of them were very, very successful in their field. A lot of Canadians came down. He had a rep. He always stayed, even though he lived in the US for most of his life, he kept his Canadian citizenship, which probably prevented him from doing work with the US military because they're quite sticky about what your citizenship is. One of the interesting things that I found was he was requested by the Australian government in 1970 to do a review of mining geophysics in that country. They felt they were falling behind, and they really wanted to get supercharged like Canada. We were a role model for them. And he was asked what they should do, which he said, you need to set up a group within CSIRO that's focused on mining geophysics, instrumentation, modeling, education, and you need a top-notch person to do it. And he identified Ken McCracken, who was not even a geophysicist. He was an astronomer who built electronics equipment that went up in satellites. And Ken was just about ready to take a job at MIT doing what he already knew he could do. And Stan recommended him, without ever having met him, for this position. And the board of CSIRO put Ken McCracken in. And that really was the beginning of the whole mining geophysical story in Australia, was Stan's report. So it's things like that. You say, good people do good things. Exceptional people do exceptional things. And Australia benefited enormously by how the whole geophysical scene was supercharged when Ken McCracken came in. Stan is the first person to actually, well, sort of vicariously, but actually build and execute very successfully an experiment not on this Earth. They sent a radar system in Apollo 10 to orbit while the two astronauts were on the ground. And they were pulsing the moon, which was a great place for radar because there's very little water. Some at the South Pole, I think, but so I had to think somebody who actually did the first experiment on another planetoid in the solar system probably deserves a Nobel Prize. And it was very, very exciting for Stan and I think the people that work with him. He facilitated when he went to the University of Utah. I call it the golden years of mining. He did, brought in really exceptional students. He was able to draw in the industry at the time, which was largely American, and it was very dynamic in the 60s and 70s, early into the 80s, until the oil companies basically cast them out. He was one of the first to recognize the importance of geothermal and got a lot of projects up to support that when the mining started to fade away. So anyways, that's one of the contributors in our society. You've met him. You might be the only person in the room other than myself who's met Stan. If you have, you saw a really cool person. So that is going to be shifted over. And just wanted to give you that update. I think.